Hi, I'm Denise Martin. Welcome to the show. This is Smarty Pants Secrets. I am the host of the show, and today we're going to be talking about productivity. But before I do, let's tell you a little bit about that Smarty Pants Secret concept, just in case it's something that you're not aware of. So what is a Smarty Pants Secret? Smarty Pants Secret is that one bit of information that helps you to get the job done a whole lot quicker, easier, without a lot of aggravation. It's that piece that you say, geez, I wish I'd known that before I spent all these hours doing all this stuff that basically saved me from the aggravation that I went through because I didn't know that Smarty Pants Secret. So Smarty Pants Secret is here to help you to learn more about a given topic. And if you follow along, then you will learn about topics that hopefully are of interest to you. And if you have a topic that you would like more interest on and you're interested in knowing more about, please let me know at the website, which is info@smartypantssecrets.com. So, there's a whole lot of information online, and sometimes when you need to know something, you say, well, I'm just going to go online and look it up. But quite honestly, there's so much information online, you'd have to slog through all that stuff, and who has the time for all that? So what Smarty Pants Secrets does is it saves you from taking all that time that you could be using to do something else and something a lot faster, and gives you that secret in advance. It's not a complete course at all. It's more just that one bit of information. There's a lot of things that are important, but it's the gist of it. What is that one thing that I wish I had known that would have saved me? So that is the Smarty Pants Secret concept. A lot of this information, Smarty Pants Secret, is grounded in biology. So it is not kind of off-the-wall stuff. It's the stuff that comes to us because we are all human beings and we're all alike. So these secrets work for everybody because we are all human beings. So, you know, it's 100% true if you're part of the human race, which we all are. My favorite quote is from Henry Ford. Henry Ford said, or one of the many things he said was, if you think you can, you're right. And if you think you can't, you're also right. So what a Smarty Pants Secret says is a lot of it is knowing what you can do and then doing it, but having the right knowledge to do it. So a lot of this is in your head. And if you believe it and you want to get it right, then you'll follow the Smarty Pants Secret, and you believe that you're right, then you are right. So we're going to talk today about productivity. What productivity is, obviously, is to kind of get a whole lot more done in less time and to do it really well. The reason I'm talking about this subject is when I talk about the things that I do, most people say to me, oh my God, you do so much, I don't know if you sleep at night. I run several businesses, I sit on several boards, I have 4 kids, I have a full family, and I just kind of am able to get a whole lot done. So I've gone through and read all the books on productivity and taken several courses and talked to the experts, and I've come down to what are the most important tips that I think you should know about on productivity so you can get a lot done too. So we're going to run through those today, and then we are also going to, of course, give you the Smarty Pants Secret about it, what it is about productivity that is the most important part to know. So let me just start before that by saying that this isn't really about, it's more about personal productivity. And if you're watching and you're talking about employee or workplace productivity, you want to know that this is good if you are dealing with other people, but they should really watch it themselves, because true productivity is an intrinsic thing and it comes from within. Workplace productivity is more about employee engagement and how do we engage other people, and motivation, which are 2 whole other different topics that we could cover in another time. But for now, we're going to talk about regular productivity and about people being productive, and you being productive if you're watching this, so that you can get a whole lot more done in a short amount of time. So let's start first with a quiz that says, how productive are you? Do you have a productive personality to begin with? Because if you do, if you're prone to be more productive, then it's just easier for you to actually get these things done that are in this kind of the system of how to be productive. So we're going to take a quick quiz here to find out whether productivity is something that comes naturally to you or whether you have to work at it. So to take the quiz, kind of follow along here, and maybe you don't need a pen and paper, but let's figure out how how easy it is for you to be productive. Do you have a productive personality? So the first part of a productive personality is you value efficiency. You hate to waste. Are you one of those people that, boy, there's a little bit of time spared, and you hate to waste that time. So you value being having efficiency. It's like, I can't waste that. I don't care if it's money, it's time, it's effort, it's energy. If you value productivity, then you lean towards, if you value efficiency rather, then you lean towards being having a productive personality. A second part of being having a productive personality is you're thorough. You tend to be the type that you say, no stone left unturned. We are going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to figure this out. I'm going to take the time and effort in order to make sure that I cover all my bases. If that's you, then that's also a hallmark of a productive personality. What about writing lists? Are you one of those people that you write a ton of lists? You love to check off the items as you write them. You even probably go back over things and add them because you remembered certain things and you've already done them, but you want to write them so you have the pleasure of checking them off, saying, I did that, so I can check that off of the list. So if you tend to be a list writer, then you are definitely leaning towards being productive, and so this is another indication of a productive personality. What about counting things? Are you one of those types that kind of this mathematical leaning when you see things and you start counting them? Whether it's birds on a wire or it's things that are laying around. Whenever you see things, you start mentally counting. If that's the way your mind works, then you have a fairly productive personality also. And you like things neat and orderly. Your closets look great. Your kitchen cabinets look great. You pick things up. You like things neat and orderly. If that's the case, another productive personality trait. And the last part of it is that you like systems and procedures. You like a set way of doing things. So it's not that you're not spontaneous or that you don't like to be flexible, but if you had your druthers, you'd like systems and you'd like things productively done in a set system, a procedural way of doing things. Then these are the 6 traits of a productive personality. And again, if this describes you, then we have easy work here to make you more productive today. So let's talk about the health ties of why you want to be productive. What happens when you're not productive is there are a number of issues that come up, not about not being productive, but about health ties that are tied to productivity. So what I'm saying is that we want to make you productive, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that you don't kind of overwork yourself because of these health ties. Eye strain is a big one. When we are working, we think we're being productive, but we are instead not doing it the best way because we're kind of pushing ourselves to get so much done, then eye strain leads to other issues like back issues is another issue that is a problem, but eye strain tends to lead to headaches and whatnot. But back issues is another one. If we are trying to be productive, and by productive, a lot of the work today is done on the computer. We're sitting in front of the computer and we're doing mental work. So we're trying to be productive, but we aren't sitting correctly in our chair, and so we're not taking proper breaks, and so we have health ties that hurt productivity. Brain fatigue is definitely an area that hurts productivity. We think that we're going to get just as much done and we're going to work for many hours at length, and we are not accounting for the fact that our brains can only work so hard, so long, and then we're not as productive at the far end as we are on the early end, and we're hurting our brains with brain fatigue, which hurts productivity. The headaches that we talked about, when we have eye strain and muscle tension, which is the next one, these all are areas, muscle tension, headaches, eye strain, they all hurt productivity. So how do we get by these things? Well, basically, we need to break up tasks so that we have 15-minute to 60-minute chunks. Whenever we schedule things to do, when we do them in chunks that are greater than an hour at a time with no break in between, then really that is hurting productivity, not helping productivity. So the system that is put into place should be one that has regular breaks in between, just for a stretch break, just to get up and break the tedium and the tension. It's highly unproductive to go for too long without a break. One technique is called the Pomodoro technique, which is using a timer. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. And the timer looks like a tomato that was made for this technique. And it basically says that you set the timer for between a 20 and a 25-minute stretch. And then after that 25-minute stretch or 20-minute stretch, you take a 10-minute break. And then you do this for 4 times. And after 4 different groupings of this, so 25 minutes, 10-minute break, 25 minutes, 10-minute break, 25 minutes, 10-minute break, then we take a 30-minute break. So that is a technique that you can use to help you basically force you to take that break that you need to take. Because if you say, I've got this project I'm going to work on, it's going to take me 3 hours to work on it, there's no way you could or should do that for 3 straight hours. You need to break that up into chunks, which we will talk about in just a second. Let's talk about multitasking. We can't talk about productivity without talking about multitasking. And is this a good thing or a bad thing? Is multitasking something that you should do or that you should probably not do? Well, the reality is, in the world we're in today, it's hard not to multitask. We've got a whole lot of things going on. But in truth, in studying multitasking, we found out that the people that do it the most are the worst at it. And the reason is because it takes, there's a couple of reasons why. One is that we tend to start thinking about other things while we're working on the next project, and that we are actually thinking we're getting ahead, but we're actually moving behind because it wastes on average 15 minutes for every time you shift gears. So the brain is on one subject, and then 15 minutes, we waste 15 minutes kind of getting up to speed on the next one. So when we are working on something and we say, okay, I'm going to put that aside, I'm a little sick of that, I'm going to go work on something else or whatnot, and I'll come back to that. Then it takes us 15 minutes to shift gears back into the new project to say, oh, where was I? And I need to pick that up. So whenever you're in the middle of something and we start to multitask, we say, okay, I can do this easily. I'll just do both at the same time. We're actually not focusing on either one well, and because of that, we are less productive on each task than if we were to do it singly. So let's see if you are prone to be a multitasker. So here comes another quiz, and see if you have this tendency to multitask, which I would recommend that you get on top of if you do. So here comes the quiz. Do you love getting more and more information and find it thrilling to explore? You're on the internet, it's like, oh, let me check out this one more thing. Let me find out more. Let me keep going here. There's more information on this I need to know. I can't move forward until I learn more about this subject. If that's you, then you are leaning towards loving to multitask, which is something that, again, you probably want to think about. Here, the second part of the quiz, you move between tasks, you're still thinking about the tasks you just left behind instead of the tasks that you're on now. You know, the brain is already working. We say to the brain, I have a problem here. The problem is I'm working on this task, and now I'm going to multitask. I'm going to go over to here, but the brain is still sitting on the first task. And so we move to task B, and maybe we even add in task C, and then a wonderful idea comes to you about task A, and you think, oh, okay, that's what I need. And so you flip back to task A. Task B and task C are still sitting there. So if that is a trait, then it's hard for the brain to kind of say, all right, you've got me on 3 things all at the same time, and so it is a hard time to leave the task that you were on and move to the other one unless you kind of finish it. So therefore, that is another trait that you tend to multitask. Another trait of multitasking is it's hard for you to keep things totally separate in your mind. You've got all these things going on, and you're thinking about them all at the same time, and it's hard for you to kind of focus on one at the same time at the exclusion of everything else. So you're having a hard time compartmentalizing and leaving one thing aside, then you are a multitasker. And then the fourth part of it is how many forms of media, as this quiz, how many forms of media do you have going on at the same time? Are you running, you're texting, and you've got your cell phone running, and you like video games, and you've got the TV going, and you've got the radio going, and how many forms of media do you use all at the same time? That is a hallmark of somebody who thinks that they are capably multitasking, but in reality, you tend not to do it well. And again, the person that multitasks is the person that, the worst offenders are the ones that do it the worst. And so therefore, if you are a multitasker, then consider that you're not being as productive as you could be if you were to instead just focus on one task at a time, for the most part. So, what is your biggest productivity problems? Productivity problems tend to fall in 4 different areas. Finishing on time. Is this your problem? You can't finish on time and you keep missing deadlines. Is your productivity problem that you can't keep track of what you're supposed to be doing? You've got all these to-dos and you just can't keep track of it. Is your problem that you are finding trouble finding stuff? You just can't find the stuff that you're supposed to find, so you're not productive because you think, I know I just put that somewhere, or I put it somewhere, but I don't know where I put it, or I filed it away, but I don't know where I filed it. Or is your biggest productivity problem that you have a hard time staying on task and on focusing? So let's look at each of these 4 problems separately and figure out how we're going to make you more productive so that you don't have these problems. So looking at each problem separately, the first one, finishing on time and missing deadlines. If this is your productivity problem, then the answer is to schedule well in advance. Give yourself that room to say, I know that I have a problem finishing on time, I tend to miss deadlines, so I'm going to schedule this out, but then you really have to honor the schedule. You have to stay with the schedule. Another technique is to have mini deadlines on smaller tasks that are related to the big deadline. If you have these mini deadlines and you hold yourself to the mini deadlines, then you are much more likely to finish each task, and then the big task will get done. Another technique with this problem on missing deadlines is to schedule in time for perhaps other things that are important also to do. So schedule in time for breaks. If you don't schedule in the breaks, then you will not have, you won't finish on time, you'll miss the deadline. And then overestimating the time that it takes to do certain tasks. That tends to be a big problem. So build in a lot of time in there, build in a lot of flexible time in there so that when the deadline comes, you've built in for emergencies, so you've built in for something that came up that you weren't planning on or that you overestimated on because you thought things were going to go so much faster than they actually did, and therefore you missed the deadline because you thought things, and then you had that brain fatigue kick in and you had everything else happening and you had those back issues. So overestimating is a problem, and you have to build in time to overestimate so that doesn't trip you up on your deadline. Keeping track of to-dos. How do you do this? Well, you have to have a system in order to do this, and it has to be a written system. Having a system in your head is not the answer. There are a number of systems that are available out there to make people more productive. One of them is a folder system, which David Allen espouses in his whole book on productivity. And that is to have folders for everything, including today, tomorrow, next week. He has a whole system, a whole folder system that you could consider adopting. The other way is to have lists and have those lists down so that you have a list for everything. And the number one problem with lists, quite honestly, if you were to adopt a list system, is most people write big things on the list and they do not make them small enough to actually make them doable. What the list should have is a list of the smaller tasks, not the big task. It's like we might write on the list, work on that project. Get more clients, figure out a filing system. All of the things that we want to do, so we have these lists of, I'm going to get this, this, and this done, but we don't break it down into the smaller parts that say, this is what's needed in order to get that done. I mean, you might put on your list to grocery shop, but that isn't really it. It's in order to grocery shop, you need the list. You need to know what to buy. You need to know what meals you're planning. Let's say if it's grocery shopping, you need to know what you already have that you don't need to buy against. So writing down the big thing, which is the end product, is the problem with most lists. We write down lists that are so big and the projects are so big on them that they're almost unmanageable. And so a list should include the smaller items. A calendar system is also a way to have a system where you have the old day timers and many other calendars today that basically you write down, and again, you have to write down the system, whatever system you use. Online tools is also another system, and those online tools you're putting right into your online, maybe the calendar is online. By calendar, I'm talking about, a hard calendar, that one that you can hold up, and there it is. But whatever system you do, it is important to write it down. Remember that if you don't write it down, you are not likely to do it. It isn't real if you don't write it down. And when you write it down, there's a consistency that says, if I wrote it down, then it's much more likely that I'm going to get it done. So remember that the biggest problems are that we make them too big and that they're not, anything that we've written down doesn't sound like it's doable, and it needs to be chunked down into its smaller steps in order to actually work. Finding stuff. Let's say that's your problem. So we have the problem of, I can't find out where I put it, so I can't be productive because I'm wasting so much time looking for the things that I think I know where they are. They're just not there. So on finding stuff, organize your space and your mind. A cluttered mind is not similar to, but it also goes along with not being very productive, because when your space, your physical space, isn't well organized and your mind isn't well organized, then it's hard to be productive. So getting organized is very important, and if you already are organized, then the discipline to maintain the organization is actually very important to productivity. So declutter. A good way to declutter paper is to have the philosophy of touch it once. Really hard to do because we get a piece of something, and we look at it and we say, okay, I'm going to put that over there. I'll take care of that later. Or I'm going to put that where I can find it. I'll put this in my important file, or I'll put this, I need to give this to so-and-so, or I need to tell so-and-so about this. And we keep holding on to these pieces of paper and we touch them multiple times. Really, to declutter is one and done. So if it needs to be filed, file it immediately. If it needs to be given to somebody, give it to that person. If it needs to be taken care of, take care of it now. Now, if it's something that can't be done right now, then at least put it somewhere where the very next action is that it moves along down the line. It doesn't go into that to-do bin that then, or to file bin, or that priority bin where it's that piece of paper just keeps getting shuffled from here to there to there. Make sure, if you can, touch it once is a good system to try and follow. If you can't, that's understandable, but if you could. Deal with things realistically is another way to help with productivity. How realistic is it that when you look at something that you're actually going to get that done? It's probably not realistic. Then you should think about, okay, what is realistic? And then we go right back to chunk it down. What is the realistic steps that you can take to make dealing with this realistically? So if you think, okay, I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to set a deadline to get this done within the next, 2 weeks, then you have to ask yourself, well, is that realistic? Is that something that I'm actually going to get done? Am I committing to something that I can actually do? Because if you say it, and then you don't do it, then you're disappointing not only yourself, but whoever else is affected by you not getting it done. So being realistic about it is important to productivity. The 2-minute rule is a good way to look at how you're looking at what you need to get done. If the 2-minute rule states that if you can get it done in the next 2 minutes, do it now. If it's something that's going to take longer than 2 minutes, schedule it on your calendar. But a lot of things, it's like, oh, it would only take me 2 minutes to do that, but then we don't do it. So doing it, if it's a 2-minute job, do it if it's within 2 minutes that you can get it done. And then write it down. Again, I can't stress on us how important I can't stress enough how important it is to write things down. We tend to think we're going to remember stuff, and we don't remember stuff. What our brains are built to do is to do high-level thinking, and remembering things is actually low-level thinking. So our brains aren't built to remember things. If you write it down, then you free your brain from having to remember it. And of course, you have to remember where you wrote it, and you're writing it inside of your productivity schedule, in your calendar, whatever you set up as a system to be productive. So it's that folder system or the list system or the calendar system. So now you know exactly where you wrote it. But remember that the brain is not geared to be thinking about low-level stuff like, where did I put my glasses? Or where did I write down that important phone number that I was supposed to call Joe on? And I wrote it down somewhere and I can't remember where. So have a system, write it down, and then free the brain to do the more higher level thinking as to what is it that I was going to discuss with Joe versus where's his phone number. And the other big productivity problem, staying on track, focusing. So that is an area where people find that they have a problem. So the biggest way to help with this issue is to really know yourself. What are your own tendencies towards focusing? You know who you are. You know yourself well enough to know that you find a radio distracting. The phone is distracting. When you're on project, you're on deadline, you need to focus, having the TV on isn't a big help. Having your chatty neighbor drop in for a visit is obviously not a big help. So how do we do that? Well, obviously, to stay on track, we need to eliminate those distractions. Once you know yourself and you know your limits and you know it's realistic, then we really have to listen to that and do the things that need to be done, like shut the door, turn off your phone, turn off all things that are distracting you, and then schedule those distractions for another time. You can actually say, you know what, I like watching TV, but this isn't the time for that now, so I'm going to tape that show, and I'm going to stay on track, or whatever it is that you love. We know that the internet is extremely distracting, right? But schedule time for that. Schedule the distractions, and then staying on track and focusing becomes easier once we know who we are. And part of knowing yourself is knowing what your own high energy periods are. So, I know that I'm very high energy and I'm much more productive later in the day. I am not an early morning person at all. So if I know that about myself, then I tend to schedule myself so that I lean into my parts of the day. And if you don't know what your best parts of the day are, and I'm pretty sure you do, because most people know when they're at their best, and they know if they're a morning person or a night person. But if there's, for some reason, you don't know when your best times of the day are, then here's a little thing you can do, which will tell you what your high energy times of the day are. Take your temperature every hour throughout the day and write it down. So if you run this exercise, you will find that your temperature, your body temperature, will fluctuate throughout the day. And what happens is, as we are getting sleepy and you know this yourself, that as your energy starts to lag, then your body temperature it starts to drop. And so as you're getting sleepy and it's nighttime and your body temperature starts to drop, then that is a signal that your energy is off. So as you look at where your peaks are, you can gauge that from your energy level as you take your temperature throughout the day, and then you'll know when the best times are you, and you will schedule your really important tasks for when you are at high energy. So let's talk about scheduling those important tasks, because those are things that you should do when you write your to-do list. You don't want to say, obviously, everything isn't as important as everything else. So as you're scheduling your tasks, keep in mind that we have A, B, and C tasks. The A tasks are critical. Either they're time critical or they're important critical, but they are critical as in has to happen very soon, and you can decide how soon very soon is, but very soon within this time period, or they're not happening at all. So those are A tasks, as in time critical, important critical, has to happen immediately. B tasks they are going to happen soon, but we got a little more time there, so we have a mid-range there. And C tasks they can happen later, so they are not time imperative to happen right now. Then, on top of looking at the time, which is the A, B, and C factor, it's also how fun are they, or how not fun are they. So when you cross-check against, we have tasks that are critical and fun, and then we have tasks that are critical but not fun, right? Then we have tasks, so we have A tasks, so A tasks that are fun, and then A tasks that are not so fun. And then we have B tasks that we need to get to soon, but they're fun, but they're not as critical. And then we have B tasks that we want to get to eventually, but they're not fun. And then we have C tasks that are fun and not fun. The problem is that we tend to take a lot of the B and C tasks that are fun, and we push them ahead of the A tasks that are critical and not fun, right? So we say, oh, well, you know what? I want to go play this game of mahjong on the computer because it's relaxing, but literally it isn't really it might be on your to-do list, quite honestly, because it's good to engage the brain, it's a good creative exercise, and it's fun to do, but on the other hand, it's really a C task. It's not as important, and we do need to schedule those C tasks in there, or else you would never get things done, and it's important to schedule in leisure activities, which are really kind of C's, but not to the detriment of the A tasks that actually are A critical tasks that fun or not fun. And the problem is, when we are scheduling ourselves, is that we tend to say, well, I want to get this done that's not fun, but I'm having a hard time getting it done because I'm distracted by this B or C tasks that is a whole lot more fun. So I want to get that done because it'll be fast and easy and it'll give me the energy to do this A task. So my point is that when you're scheduling your tasks, look at them from both the A, B, C point of view, from a time point of view, and also from a fun and not fun point of view, and then schedule them accordingly as to how you're going to intersperse them as you're writing your to-do list and as you're scheduling your calendar and you have your productive system going, which will make you much more productive if you know the task for what it is and then you schedule it in properly. So about each task, here's the important things that you want to ask. How long is it going to take to do based on my skill level? You know, we're good at some things and we're not good at other things. And the things that we're not good at, if we can't delegate it, then we have to leave extra time to do it based on the learning curve and how long it's going to take us to practice it, to get good enough at it. So we can't schedule that for the same amount of time, obviously, as something that we're already good at. So skill level is important when scheduling how long something is going to be. So we're scheduling against skill. We're also scheduling against that ABC task as to how much time it's going to take and how time critical it is when we set that deadline to get this done. And then another important factor to schedule each task on is the value that it brings. What value is this task bringing? Because unfortunately, a lot of the fun tasks don't have a lot of value attached. Value is in direct proportion to, not to fun, but to, it's basically self and value. When we'll talk about this a little bit further down, but basically we have things that we value because it helps make the world a better place, it helps other people. There's real value added to that. And then fun tasks tend to be the ones that really the value is to us. And so we weigh those two out. What value does the task bring as you're scheduling this task? What is the value? And then what will it take to complete? What are the related tasks that are, and this is back to chunking it down, what is involved in this task as you put it on the to-do list? And are those other things really tasks in and of themselves and not really part of the big task? Because the big task has a big deadline to it, and the related tasks are really the tasks that, the underpinnings of the big tasks that allow the other things to be done. So what are the things that are related to this task as you're scheduling it? What's the energy level that's required? What energy do you need to bring to this task? And this is all the things that you want to think about as you're scheduling the task. Schedule it accordingly against your own personal energy level. Am I doing this first thing in the morning when, in my case, I'm really not fully awake? Or in your case, if you're a morning person, when you've got high energy? Or am I doing it later on in the day? If I'm doing it right after lunch, it might not be a good time either, because a lot of people tend to lag right there in the early afternoon. But if that's a good time for you, but just factoring in what is the energy. And then also about each task, you need to think about what is the reward you're going to give yourself for completing it. Every task needs a reward attached to it. That reward can be whatever you devise. Come up with a whole system of rewards. It could be a pat on the back, good job, nice job doing that. I'm proud of you, Denise. Or it could be something tangible, like I'm going to eat a candy bar, and I'm eating that right after but the reward or it could be I'm going to go take a walk. That, which is great also, of course, and just go outside and get a breath of fresh air. Or it could be, I'm going to listen to some music that I like. Or it could be, if it's a really big task and it's a really big project and you're getting it done, you're going to reward yourself. You're going to go out and have a glass of wine, or you're going to go see a movie. You're going to do something. You're going to, whatever the reward is. So keep in mind that when you set up your own reward system for every task that you complete, it should be commensurate with the task itself. And it, again, should be written down, because with everything that you do, there should be a reward attached so that you can look forward to it. And then you take the time to properly celebrate. And without that reward there, you don't tend to do that. You tend to just plow ahead and move on and move on and move on. And a big part about being productive is actually stopping and rewarding yourself when you finish a task, so that you will then have the energy, which is a nice pick-me-up, to go on and to continue on and finish the other tasks. So being productive is really about stopping to take a break and to reward yourself for finishing the task when you've done it, a commensurate task with the project that you're working on. So we've got your day that's full, and you've got the schedule rolling, and as you're running the schedule, which is any schedule that you've come up with, again, the folder system, the written system, the calendar system, the to-do list system, whatever you've come up with, and it's a written system, is to remember to schedule in time for a lot of the other things that are also important to schedule in. So it's not all about tasks. It's about, on your big schedule, scheduling in leisure time, time to relax and to do something fun that's not task related. So it's not a fun task, but it's a time to do something that is just for you. And this could be your reward, and certainly that could be the reward for doing it. But even if it's not the reward, you need to schedule in some leisure time for yourself, because you're scheduling basically your full day. And obviously the full day can't be all work. There has to be a little play in there, obviously. So schedule in time not only for leisure, but also to think. People do their best thinking when they're kind of relaxed, but the brain needs time to not just constantly be processing, but to basically relax, which is thinking time for the brain, where you're just sitting there thinking about what is it that I have going on in my life. And every day, spending a little bit of time just processing and thinking is important to do. So in your schedule, have some thinking time in there planned to just think. Fluff time is important to schedule in. Time for things to go wrong. You know, I thought everything would go great, but then I really didn't count on this happening, and now my schedule's all thrown off because this happened. I didn't count on it. I didn't leave fluff time in there, and now it's just backing up everything. So schedule in fluff time so that that doesn't happen. And if you end up that you don't need that fluff time, well, great, you know, good that you had it just in case. Also inside of fluff time is flex time. So time for emergencies, distractions, things that can't be avoided, things that I forgot about this. It came up. This happened and I wasn't counting on this. Something just happened that in my personal life, something just happened that I had to reschedule everything because I didn't account for this emergency happening. And rescheduling is fine also, but if I wasn't able to schedule for this flex time. It was a health issue with a daughter of mine, and so at this point, I need to say, okay, I didn't allow enough flex time for this. But when you are doing your regular schedule, do schedule in flex time for minor emergencies, not the big emergencies that I might be dealing with, but the minor emergencies that come up when somebody knocks on your door and says, God, this is right away. Is this something that you can take care of right now for me? And then you say, yeah, of course that's important. That's part of what I do. Let me drop everything and take care of this because it has to happen right now. And it's going to be a little more than 2 minutes. So flex time is important. And breaks are obviously important. You've got to schedule in those breaks. Go back to the Pomodoro system or whatever system, but those breaks, you can't keep going without having a break. And you need to break really after every hour of intensive is needed. If you want to go 2 hours, that's up to you, but no more than 2 hour stretch. Every half hour to 2 hours is the most you should go without taking a break. And it should be a planned break where you literally get up from what you're doing and you walk around. Maybe it's not 10 full minutes, maybe that's too long for you, but definitely at least 5 minutes. So a 5-minute break every, half hour to 2 hours, with really after 2 hours, it should probably be a little longer break, more like a 15-minute break, or perhaps a half-hour break if you like the Pomodoro system. But in my world, half hour is a little bit long. But I do recommend a break on a regular interval. So you have to schedule them into your day when you're doing your big schedule. And schedule in time to do email. Isn't email the beast of, it ends up taking up so much time. People at work say that their employees spend a good at least 1/3 of their day on email, which is really, really not good. That is, sometimes email is productive because people say, well, email me instead of calling me because, I can go faster on email. But in reality, email is not the communication channel that we think it is. There's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of things around email that makes it less productive than we want it to be. So when we hear that little ding, you've got new email, we tend to say, oh, I got to see what that is. I'm waiting for this important thing to come in. I'm waiting, I have to check out that email right away. That's really unproductive. Email should be scheduled for twice a day. So you check it twice a day. And if you check it either first thing in the morning and then mid-afternoon or right before you go home, whatever it is, should be able to be addressed within those 2 time frames. I would say first thing in the morning for a half-hour email as soon as you come in, and then another half hour maybe later in the afternoon, somewhere in the 2 to 3 o'clock window. But you'll know what's best for you. But the point is to schedule email instead of letting email schedule you. So we have the 10 key elements of productivity. And it is all the things that I've been talking about. So in order, they are adopt a written schedule for a system that you're, and actually as we go through these 10, the first 5 are really the crux of productivity, and then the last 5 are more the mental piece of productivity. So let's go through these one by one. So the first one is to adopt that written schedule that I talked about, something that you're comfortable with, something that works for you. So of all the systems that are out there, find a schedule that works, some sort of a system rather, that works for you. But whatever it is that you pick, use it religiously, schedule all your tasks, personal tasks, regular work tasks, professional tasks, everything gets scheduled on the same system, and you put it on this master system that really runs you for all hours that you're awake. Then the second key element of productivity is to have those breaks that we talked about. You can't eat the whole apple or the whole pie. It's much easier if you slice it down. So as much as I can say chunk it down, chunk it down, chunk it down, get things down to their manageable chunks, because when you get something that's staring you in the face and you get this deadline on the calendar and you didn't leave enough time for it and you said, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to get that done. And then what happens? We have to push it off, and that doesn't get done. Whether that's writing your next great book, whether that's doing that project that you've always wanted to do, whatever it is, when we have it as a big looming project, it just gets so big that we cannot get to it. So breaking it down is really very critical. The third element of key element on productivity is to block out time for, don't schedule yourself so tight that you're just straitjacketed by your schedule. That is a big downfall of productivity. You have to schedule in, and again, we're talking about the full day now, not just your work day, because you're putting in everything from your leisure activities, your personal activities to your work activities. You got to block out time for the leisure. Got to have them, the breaks, the thinking, the flex time, all those things that come up that will impact your schedule. Because if you don't do those things and then they come up and then you get disappointed and you get discouraged and you go, this isn't working for me and I'm just not that productive and I don't know why. And it's because you kind of weren't realistic about it, right? And you didn't get things done because you didn't allow for a system to be in place to actually work for you. The reward part of it is key. It's number 4, and it is to make sure that everything that you do, and this is more of the stuff that you're doing more for work. If you're doing tasks that are related to personal fun stuff, then it's not as important to reward yourself because the task is a reward in and of itself, I guess, I suppose, but more for the stuff that it's more for the stuff that we consider not fun, I guess. Remember on our list where we had the things that were fun and the things that weren't fun? Well, the things that aren't fun really need a nice reward attached to them, even if it's a small task and it's a small reward, but it does need to have a reward system in place, because if not, if you just keep plowing ahead and you do not reward yourself and stop and say, good job, and pat yourself on the back and say, yeah, my reward for that is I'm going shopping, or whatever you want to consider the reward, or I'm going to go splurge on this and this. As soon as I get this done, I'm going to go see that movie that I've always wanted to see. Whatever it is, the reward that you have that's task specific, and the bigger the reward, the bigger the task, it's important to have that reward system in place and that you really know about it and you live by it. And then have that break system. This break system that's kind of on now is for kindergartners, and it's basically saying it's important in every day to have a little recess and a little lunch. And what I'm saying is, in your world, we're not in kindergarten anymore, but recess is still important. We've got to have a break. Our minds will not continue on for hours on end. We think we can push ourselves to the wall, and we can do it if we're up against a tight deadline, but that's not a lot of fun. Much better, much more productive to have it built in so that we get it done every day, and that break is right there when we need it. So the other elements of productivity that are more about you and less about, so it's more a mental mindset, is to hold to your deadlines. When you put them in there, don't push them off and say, well, you know what, I guess that deadline isn't going to happen. I hoped that would have happened on this day, but I obviously didn't get to it. So, when we do that to ourselves, we're not productive because we keep saying to ourselves, oh, it's all right, I didn't have to do that anyway. And so when you put those deadlines down there, live by them. And when they're written, they are much more likely to happen again. But not only written, but everything behind it, the whole system behind it will make you more productive. Look at your goals. Number 7 is to set your goals with time frames, but stretch yourself a little bit outside of your comfort zone. There are the things that we're very comfortable doing, and we don't like to stretch. And what this is showing is there are there are different levels of comfort zone. So, and then there are different levels of uncomfortable. So I'm not saying to push way out of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone might be quite small, and your danger zone might be quite big. If that's the case, then we recognize that because we know ourselves and we live with that. But I'm saying push out a little bit out of your comfort zone into that stretch area and stretch yourself a little bit more. And if you do, you will find that you'll be much more productive, and maybe you'll be a little happier with yourself. So stretching out of our comfort zone isn't a bad thing. It shows real good growth. The 8th element of productivity is to adjust your expectations. Kind of say, well, there's expectation and then there's reality. And sometimes what tends to happen is we are so locked in on it's got to be right, it's got to be perfect, it's just got to be, or I'm just not happy, I'm going to keep doing it or not until, it's like do or die, I keep going here. At some point, and I'm not saying lower your standards, that's not it at all. It's because your standards are your standards and you should live by your standards. But sometimes adjusting expectations helps. Release the perfectionism, maybe delegate it to somebody else and let them do it for you, which is adjusting your expectations. Maybe the expectation is you had to do it all yourself, and that's keeping you from being productive. And, sometimes it's just much better to say reality is if I hold to this expectation, it's never ever going to happen. So in order to be more productive, I can kind of step down a notch on this item, and then it's still going to be fine. Number 9, know yourself, your strengths, and delegate accordingly. We know our limits. We know what's going to help and going to hurt. We know when we are kind of either stretching too far because that's our limit, and we know when we're not stretching enough because we don't want to challenge ourselves enough for whatever reason, because we're scared of failure or whatever the case is. But know yourself and your strengths, and then if this is not either in your comfort zone or in your skill bank, then delegate and it will get done. Eventually, everything will work out because you basically see the big picture and you know where you end and where somebody else begins, and accept the help, basically. Know yourself, know your strengths, know your limits, delegate, take help when you need it. And the last and actually very important one is to stay positive in your attitude. Is your glass half empty or half full? Well, it should always be half full, not half empty. Because when we stay positive in attitude and we think, tomorrow's another day, I'm going to get this done, then everything just works better. If you don't, and you're always thinking, oh God, look at this list, I've got so much to do, instead of look at all the things that I got done, right? The glass is half full. I got all this stuff done. It's not half empty, I've got all this stuff left to do. It's that positive piece about, it's great, I'm going to get this stuff done and I'm moving forward, I'm positive I'm going to meet that deadline, or if not, then your schedule and productivity goes down the drain because it just seems so tedious and it becomes not fun anymore. And once again, we looked at the things that are fun, things that aren't fun, things that are critical, and we spend our time doing too much stuff that's not fun, then that's not worth it. Life's too short. So what is the Smarty Pants secret? It's to write it down and then make it public. So I've stressed many times how important it is to write it down, but let me just add to that making it public is really very important. When you write it down, it makes it real, but when you make it public, then it makes it more than just real. Because if you write it down and you're the only one that looks at it, then you aren't likely to actually, you can actually erase it. You can say, well, nobody else saw this, and you can talk yourself out of a lot of things. But when you make it public, you tell other people about it. You post it so that anybody who comes by can see it. You hire a coach and you tell your coach about it. You tell your family and friends, this is what I'm going to get done. I'm going to get that book finished by this date. I'm working on a book. I'm going to get that written. Or I'm working on this project. I'm going to get that done. When you make it public, then that is really the secret to being productive, because writing it down is important, but then making sure that it's actually not just in your head, but that other people, because why? Other people, we're accountable to other people, and the minute we say something, then we hate to be wrong, and so we will be consistent with what we say, and when we say it out loud, as in writing it down where people can hear it or see it, then it not only becomes real, we don't want to let other people down, so it actually happens. We create our own realities when we make it public. Let's talk very briefly about the biology behind this. So what is the biology that makes this real, as every Smarty Pants secret has the biology behind it? The biology is many. One is that we seek novelty. Our brains are always looking, and that it's looking for that next thing. What does novelty represent? It represents a couple things. One is opportunity, and the other is threat. But when we feel very safe, like we're sitting in front of our computer, we seek the novelty, and that is why surfing the internet can become such a distraction towards productivity, because it's like new all the time, right? Every time we get online, there's something new and fun and exciting. Oh gosh, we got to see what was the thing I saw the other day? A baby was born with multiple limbs in India and looks like a god. But anyway, it's like, oh, got to see that picture, right? Or we've got to see the two-headed calf that was born, whatever. The internet is always novel and new and distracting, so it hurts productivity. So knowing that, then we need to know that we need to schedule time in for those distractions. And it's not that we can't do them, we just have to schedule them in because the biology says that it hurts productivity. Another piece of the biology or the being human is that the brain completes patterns, and it's really built for high-level thinking. And I talked about that a little bit back, but if you look at what's on the screen now, which is you see what you think or you know is the alphabet on the right-hand side, or you see a Dalmatian dog. But actually, what is that dog? That's not a dog. That's just a whole bunch of dots, right? But what the brain does is it connects the dots, literally, and says, I'm going to make a pattern out of this because nothing is random in the world, and those dots, don't those dots kind of look like a dog? Or don't those squiggles kind of look like a sea monster? Or don't those lines look like the alphabet when we see them in this pattern shape? Because we are so used to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So the brain completes that pattern, and it does this all the time because that is what the brain is geared to do. It's that high-level thinking that I was talking about. And so how do we use this biology for productivity? To know that stop straining the brain to remember stuff that is a low-level activity, just what I talked about before. You've got to develop those systems, at that written system, to free the brain up and free up that brain power. Another part of our makeup is that we strive for consistency. We take a firm stand, we believe in it, and that's where we go back to that Smarty Pants secret. Make it public, talk about it, display your system, and you are much more likely to be more productive because you told other people about it. Because again, once we say something, this is why juries get hung, because one person says, I think he's guilty, and everybody else says, are you kidding? He's innocent. And once that person puts up their hand and says, I think he's guilty, it's really hard to step back from that because we've made that public stand. We strive to be consistent when we say something, so we do not want to look like we said something in error, or we hate to be wrong. So once we know that, and that's how we operate, that we're kind of built for that, then we use that to our advantage in productivity by telling other people about it, saying, here's what I'm going to do. And you will find that if you do that, you will be more productive. And back to the last part, which is we hate to be wrong. Our egos hate to be wrong. We just have this sense of, well, I don't want to back down once I've taken a stand. So tell others about your goals. You'll accomplish so much more if you do, once you make it public. And the final slide here is about productivity tips. So let's talk about those very quickly because I want to tie this up and get through the end of this. So it's to learn to say no. If you can't schedule it, don't take it on, right? It's so hard for us to do because we want to be nice and we want to say, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. You know, realistically, if you can't put it on your new schedule that you've invested in, then say no. If you can't find a way to schedule it, say no. Or say, okay, let me check my schedule, and literally you now have a schedule going, and you say, yep, I can schedule that in, I've got some flex time, I can schedule that in 3 weeks from Tuesday. How does that sound? And now you know exactly if you can fit that into your schedule or not. Another productivity tip is to take advantage of the car and wait time to get stuff done. Have some planned activities. I listen to audiobooks all the time. Audiobooks are great. Not only do I get reading done of stuff that I've always wanted to listen to, classics, but there's all kinds of books on like learning things that you can listen to. So there's lessons, there's language lessons, you can learn another language. There's all kinds of time to do stuff. So the library is a great source for free audiobooks, or whatnot. What about reading the newspaper? I read the newspaper every day, but if I know I'm going to the doctor's office, I know I'm going to have a wait, so I bring stuff with me to do so that I don't waste the time. So take advantage of car and wait time to get stuff done with activities. Maybe you're writing out your to-do list, but whatever it is, obviously, don't let that downtime go. How about recognizing a task is more about ego than about value? And we touched on this a little bit, but basically ego is what makes you feel good, and is this task about value? And if you really want to be productive, and this is a tip, if you really want to be productive, then scrape one fun thing and say, you know what, maybe if I want to be productive, I don't need to do this one thing, and I'm going to take that off of my schedule because I recognize that it's really about me and it's really not adding a lot of value. That's just up to you. Another productivity tip is to know when good is enough. You know, if you get something done and you go, boy, I can't believe how fast that got done, recognize that that doesn't mean that everything is going to go that fast. So sometimes things do happen well, and we celebrate that, and we say, I thought that was going to take me a half hour to do, and I did it in 10 minutes. It doesn't mean that everything you can apply that principle to everything. It doesn't work that way. Productivity tip a lot of people use and do it is to write your tomorrow list the night before, right? Write down the things that you're going to do if you're on the list system. Write it down the night before you go to bed so that you wake up, you already know what's going in. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the brain actually goes to work while you're sleeping at night, which is exactly what you want it to do. So if you go down and then it wakes up in the morning and it says, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing today and I know exactly how I'm going to get it done. So write that list the night before you go to bed, no matter how tired you are, and then the next day you don't have to say, okay, what am I going to do today? So, and a very detailed list, by the way, not just not the broad list, the detailed list. And then the last one is to have your C items on your list so that you pick away at them. Because if you always do your A's and your B's, and then the B's become A's and the C's never get done, then you won't feel good about yourself. So definitely schedule some time, at least weekly, to get those C's done. And then eventually you will get them done and you will feel like, well, it wasn't just talk. I actually am making some progress towards getting that C thing done. Even if it's over the course of years, it eventually will get done. So that's it on productivity. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something and that you are much more productive and that you will find that you're happier with yourself because you're getting more done if you want it to be, if you feel like you enjoy being productive. And we're all here for a reason, right? And it's all about how we can add value to the world by what we do. And part of what we do ties up with our confidence in who we are. So if that was your goal, then I'm hoping that you found this informative. And if you have any other topics you want to see, please go to and email me at info@smartypantsecrets.com, and I'll be happy to look into getting that topic for you. Because remember, Smarty Pants Secrets, because you're no dummy.